I've been confident for a long time that we'll find a way of getting a deal here in the end. The withdrawal treaty or the withdrawal agreement, which is a legal document, is more than 90% complete now. The last 5 to 10% was always going to be difficult. It was always going to involve Ireland. It was always going to involve the Irish border issue and how we find a legal text to follow through on the political commitments that have been made by the British government to the Irish government and to the EU, which is essentially to ensure that there's a legally operable legal text consistent with the agreements of last December there in the withdrawal treaty, unless and until something else is negotiated and agreed in the future. So that is at the moment the stumbling block to getting final agreement, but I am confident that over the next 6 weeks or so we'll find a way of getting that done. For a long time, I and the Irish government have said that we think 21 months wasn't going to be enough for a transition period to negotiate a comprehensive future relationship agreement and to ensure that businesses don't have to change twice, if you like, once for a transition period, then for something else in between a final deal and the transition period. So, I mean, what's on offer now officially from Michel Barnier is really to try and provide reassurance to the British side that, look, if more time is needed to put a future relationship agreement in place that can ensure that the backstop is never needed, well then of course that time is available if you want it. But nobody's forcing extra time on the British side if they don't want it. But I do think there's going to be a need for more than 2 years to get all of the issues that we need agreed between the EU and the UK finalised, including to reassure people that any backstop is very unlikely to be used. I do think people would like us to get on and make decisions, that's true, but I don't get any sense that the solidarity with the Irish position and certainly the Irish vulnerability and exposure in the context of a negative fallout from Brexit has waned at all. If anything, the solidarity that I've seen from EU leaders, and the Taoiseach I think is the same, has strengthened in recent weeks and recent months. They see that the Irish issue is a real issue. They don't want a small member state to essentially be collateral damage from the fallout of a large member state leaving the European Union. And the peace process on the island of Ireland, relationships on the island of Ireland need to be protected through that transition. And so EU leaders expect the British Prime Minister to follow through on the commitments that she has already made to Ireland and to the EU in order to solve that issue. Well, at the Brexit Ready events, businesses in particular want to know when they're going to have clarity on a transition period, because that for them gives them a lot more time and space to be able to plan for the future. But in terms of the practical assistance that they need, businesses are now looking at changing supply chains, changing sourcing potentially. If their suppliers don't have the certification for EU markets that they have today as a result of Brexit, that means a fundamental change in terms of how they do business, who they do business with. And likewise, they want to be able to continue to sell product into the UK as well, what that will look like if they need to understand customs, for example, and customs checks for the first time. So a lot of practical questions now about changing the trade relationship both from customers and suppliers from the UK, but still a determination to continue to want to trade with Britain and to keep us as close as we possibly can post-Brexit. So we're outlining obviously answers to some of those questions and the resources and advice that businesses can get from the state and state agencies. These events really are about giving practical assistance to businesses who are looking to effectively redesign their businesses in terms of their marketplace, how they source and where they source from. And what the state has on offer now are a series of grants to support businesses to take on consultants to do that. They can get a €5,000 grant from Enterprise Ireland to put a Brexit plan in place. They can get short-term capital at low interest rates to actually look at working capital through that period. And they can get longer-term loans as well at very competitive rates to look at Brexit loans that may be required to help restructure a business physically, as well as from a planning perspective. So a lot of supports there. The main message that we're giving to businesses though is, no matter how big or small your business, assign somebody or assign a team in your business to start thinking about Brexit and engaging with Irish agencies, because there's a lot of help and a lot of advice there for you. There are lots of challenges for Cork City and County associated with Brexit. I mean, don't forget that Cork is by far the biggest food producer and has more food companies than any other part and any other county in Ireland. And so food is a very sensitive sector in relation to Brexit, because of course we sell about €5.5 billion worth of food to UK consumers each year. So many of the Irish food companies that have grown up in the last decade or so have seamlessly grown out of Ireland into the UK, because we share the same single market and customs union, and so there are no barriers to doing that. That business model now may be threatened because of the United Kingdom leaving both the single market and customs union and of course the European Union in terms of the standards and regulatory perspective. So there is a lot of work to do here. There are other sectors as well in Cork that I think we could see potentially getting a benefit from Brexit. Certainly the university here. Hopefully we'll have 2 universities here soon. I think there's an opportunity for partnerships with British universities to make sure that they have an EU footprint in terms of a lot of the research funding that's available through the European Commission. But I think other clusters may well look to expand, particularly around financial services in the city centre, as large London-based financial service companies do need to have an EU-headquartered footprint somewhere. And I think the cost base in Cork makes it very, very competitive for that, as well as the international connectivity here. From my perspective, it's great to see Matheson building a presence here in Cork. I think it's a recognition that this is a city that's on the move in the right direction. It's a region also that's on the move. I mean, don't forget that the government's national planning framework and our 10-year capital expenditure plan is really about creating a counterbalance to the East Coast and to Dublin. And the obvious place to achieve that is in the second largest urban population in the country. So Cork City will grow at a faster rate than any other city in the country for the next 2 decades. We're talking about a population growth of about 60% in the city and about an extra 100,000 people in the county as well. So this, as a city and county, we're planning for a population of somewhere between 800 and 850,000 people, which for the first time creates real scale outside of Dublin and the East Coast. So not only does the government have a plan for Cork City and County to be a major counterbalance to Dublin, but this is going to be an internationally competitive region as well. I mean, there's more foreign direct investment in Cork per head of capita actually than Dublin. So it makes sense for a firm the size and scale of Matheson to have a presence here. But I think the main thing is that I think this is a statement of confidence that Cork is going to see dramatic growth in terms of international business and business of scale that has attracted the interest of a company the size of Matheson to be part of that. And I think that signals a lot of very positive growth for the future.